This is Standard Group Podcast Editors Podcast, and of course today I'm your host, CEO Charles Otieno, and our Health and Science Editor,
Alex Kiarie.
Karibu sana Alex,
Asante
and a
nashukuru.
guest, a beautiful lady who has traversed and really understands the continent and the country.
Fatuma Mohamed is my name.
Fatuma, karibu sana. So, what do you engage in? Let's viewers and listeners see and hear.
First and foremost, thank you for hosting me today.
Yes.
Let me send condolences to the young Kenyans who died while they're fighting for change, and those who are in the hospital. Quick recovery. For me, as a businesswoman, and also sometimes I try to vie for political seat, and a young woman who come from northeastern, where men will always say that women are not supposed to lead. It's the men who are supposed to lead. Our generation, I might not see that. Might not say myself I'm Gen Z, but I'm in between Gen Z and Millennial. What has happened in our country is the same thing that has happening in Sudan. If you look at Sudan, what happened for some few months ago. And today, Sudan, you can imagine how many people are in the refugee camp just because of a bread that the government increased. So what I have said that we are facing a new revolution, not only Kenya, the entire global. Even America, young people are demonstrating, young people are calling for change. Look at UK also. They see the same group that are demonstrating in Kenya also pushing for change in UK. Look at West Africa, there's a lot of change that has been happening. So all these things has come on the right time, because if you look at people who are born between 1992 to 1997, these are the generation that really want to have a change. So it's a revolutionary generation change that is happening globally, not only Kenya.
So you touched on very important things. You touched about bread. I've always said that bread has led to revolutions across the globe. Marie Antoinette, the Queen of France, and the famous cake business, that's a bread. You've touched about the Sudanese increase of bread prices. It seems that bread has been a very big catalyst in any generational or when people want to do proper change. Kiarie, what do you find when you say that most of these countries, bread has been at the center of this struggle of revolution?
I think having traversed the continent in my previous job at one of the international media houses, I think Eastern Africa and very many parts of Southern Africa are the ones which usually do a lot of ugali and what we call githirai amongst my people in Kiarie in my Mount Kenya region. Bread is the main staple food for most of the economies outside these regions. And those who grow maize, I think I've seen a lot of conversations about mahindi ya farasi in the US, because they also grow what you call corn there, but they don't eat it. It's mostly meant for livestock. But bread is the staple food. So whenever you touch on that food that is easily available, that everybody should be able to afford, it is easy to make the people revolt because they're fearing dying of starvation. So if a basic bread, a commodity like bread can be unaffordable to most of them, of course you can expect a revolt. If right now you go to Egypt, for example, even Algeria, there are whole bakeries that are made in the open. They bake in the open bread, all shapes and sizes of bread. And they're sold so cheaply that you can even afford with a 5 shilling coin in Kenya. The Kenyan coin, 5 shillings, you can easily afford bread. You cannot go hungry. Just like it is with matoke in Uganda and some Great Lakes region countries like Rwanda and also Burundi. People think that the only place you can find matoke is in Uganda. Not really. Burundi has an awful lot of bananas, all shapes and kinds. So this is the reason why whenever you touch any staple food on bread, it is easily going to ignite a whole revolution and actually kick you out of power as a leader.
So in the Kenyan situation, what started as a Gen Z protest, Fatma, it started with the bread finance bill. Then eventually it has moved at Ruto must go. What do you think this revolution needs to address for the Kenyans and the young Kenyans to achieve their goals?
This thing, first and foremost, that these young people, we are advocating for change. We cannot live the way that our great-grandfather used to live or our fathers used to live. We need to have a change. We need to have accountable government. We need to know that where this money going. All this money that the government are borrowing, we don't know where the government is taking the money. So that is why the young people, and remember also the Kenya Kwanza government, when they are campaigning, they campaign based on ideology of youth empowerment. They use the youth language that Mamaa Mboga, Boda Boda, and all the Mtua Mokokoteni and all those things. When the president was campaigning, he was specifically addressing the young people of this country. He said that we are going to have access credit for the young people to do business. But today, we are desperate. We don't have jobs. We don't have money to start business. We don't have even the requirement that the government is always asking us, like Youth Fund, Wezo Fund, and also Hustler Fund. So the president had a very good policy for the youth, but when it comes to implementation, that is why now the youth now become frustrated, because they believe that when the president say that this is going to be a government of hustler, when he was appointing, we are expecting to see Mamaa Mboga to be the minister for women and youth. I was expecting that this government is going to appoint like Mtua Boda Boda, at least minister for sports and culture. But what we have seen, the same group that we have been complaining from Uhuru's government, are the same people are leading us today. So look at the young people who are now graduating. We don't have job. Hatuna kazi. Where are we going to get jobs? Because if you write your CV, I have seen a young man who was trying to look for a job in industrial area, and then when he was coming from industrial area, he find himself in the middle of demonstration because hakukuwa amepata kazi, alikuwa anatafuta kazi kwanza. So you see, getting a job is not easy in Kenya because you must have money to bribe a CEO to give you a job. If I am graduate from just a degree and I don't have experience and don't have money, where am I going to get the job? So that is why the young people are frustrated. The old people are not leaving the office. Nobody is retiring from the government offices because everyone wants to stay there. So if the generation that want change and you cannot get change, what do? We go to the street and we demand for our right and change. And the president should listen. At least he has listened to us. He has responded kidogo. But we need more than that. We want to see Mamaa Mboga being given this SMEs, Ministry of SMEs and the one that... So if at least he can come up with a policy that give the youth access to all this fund. When we are borrowing money from the youth fund, they will give you a lot of requirement. Wanakuambia leta title deed. Where am I going to get the title deed? I don't even have. Nitapata wapi? I can't get a job and I can't access the government. But when you look at the government procurement, it's a youth-friendly policy. But when it comes to practically, I don't know who is borrowing all those money.
So you've touched very important issues there. You're saying that the president promised and did not deliver on the promises during the campaign trail. And this has been coupled with many other issues, and of course the finance bill was a catalyst where now people have decided to go on the streets. But the question still remains that apart from the president, there are many governors who have been given a lot of money and have not seen the youth protest against the governors who are mismanaging their funds in the counties.
You see, the central of this country is the national government, which is led by the president. So the governors, yes, like where I came from, Northeastern, people are not even aware we have something called Youth Fund, Women Fund, Wezo Fund, and Hustler Fund because of Islamic Sharia. Because of we have these things of tribal mind people. But the Gen Z now are changing the conversation. We are not here for tribe, we are here for change. For the longest time, we are being told that to be silent. Don't talk about the governor, because if the governor is your tribe or where I came from, we use clan, you don't have to comment anything. But enough is enough. We need accountability. Not only the president, even the MCAs, we need to ask them, what are they doing for us at the ward level? So for the young people coming with such kind of conversation, we need a lot of civic education, people to understand their basic right as a citizen. So that one, I think we are heading there. But now that the president sees that he is the central point of the country, it attracted a lot of attention because he is the one who brings this thing called Hustler Fund, bottom-up economic and all those things. So for the time being, that we need the president to lead us in the right direction, because he is the patron for the country. That is why we are pushing hard on this thing of finance. The issue is not only finance bill, it's even beyond finance bill. But it has come the right time where now Kenyans understood that tumesoma, tumesema, tumeelewa na tumesoma. Lakini watu wengine ambaye like governance, tukenda the governor mashinani, there are so many people, they are not even aware what is this finance bill.
Okay. Kiarie, you wanted to interject on something there.
Yes, I think what Fatuma is just talking about is an issue that has been simmering for quite a while. For us in Kenya, I would like to connect the whole of these conversations to a change in our politics. The golden era of politics, where corruption used to drive everything, nepotism and everything, could be over. And you know what has contributed to this? It is that increase in the number of people who are unemployed, the people who are poor, and the fact that we had an entitled leadership that appeared not to be caring about the plight of the people who are at the end of the ladder huko chini. And also remember that Kenya has just emerged from two very extreme weather phenomena. We had a 4-year drought that ravaged the food reserves in the country. It's pushed up the cost of basic foods and commodities, mostly ugali. It was quite unaffordable. And yet, after that, we had the El Nino rains just happened. Actually, we did a story on how these two weather patterns oscillate between Kenya, Eastern Africa and Southern African region. Right now, as we speak, when we were busy drowning here in the south, the sun was baking hot. Yeah. It was extremely dry. And actually, countries that were food sufficient, like Zambia, were actually calling for assistance from from FAO, I think, and World Food Program. The same case with Zimbabwe. These are the same countries that were just emerging from two cyclones, Kenneth and Idai, which also devastated the crops. So they did not harvest. And that's why when you recall during the time when there was a maize shortage in the country, and Minister of Agriculture talked about having sourced for maize from Zambia, there was a very extreme reaction from the Zambian government, because they were themselves not having anything to sell. So when the minister went there and claimed to have had an engagement with them to supply maize to us, he was lying. And now the rains have shifted to this other side. And now when the maize farmers are now expecting to plant, they end up with fake fertilizer. That's why you're seeing this anger is being accelerated by issues that were actually not connected to the finance bill. People were angry, but the finance bill just opened the young people's eyes. And for your own information, I think the biggest problem that we are facing here, and I wish our leadership could look at it from a journalistic point of view, is that we decided to deal with an economic crisis politically. You are talking about trying to lump your tribe here. It's not working. Now you bring in goons. When now people have started protesting. Remember that when the protests broke out in Sudan, if there is anybody who has read a lot about al-Bashir, Omar al-Bashir, Hassan al-Bashir, I do not think Omar al-Bashir was a man who could be brought down by a girl who was 22 years old, who mobilized young people to come and, push for their space, and he ended up out. He was facing an economic revolution. People were hungry. The oil reserves that used to drive his agenda of financing the likes of Janjaweed and everything had been shifted to South Sudan after independence. Sudan did not have enough oil reserves and oil wells to sustain the population's subsidies, because even the bread was cheap because of the subsidies. So the moment he removed, and that country was also under very, very, very strong sanctions by the West, the people went hungry. They rose up. I'm telling you, the rapid support forces were killing people every day for a year, but he left. So even if we resort to using the military, resort to using the police, abductions and everything. As long as these people are hungry, they don't have enough, they will definitely come for you. So it's the only way out is to have a way out and understand that all other economic revolutions have not been resolved
by
the
political
governments,
situations.
even the governments in place of the day. Look at Greece.
Yeah.
Greece had to change the government to go and renegotiate afresh with the Bretton Woods institutions.
Yeah.
Look at Spain. Even Ireland was there a few years back. They had to do that. So the only way out is, the first and foremost, for the government in place. Leaders are already now feeling it. They can't go home because people are tired of listening to the same things, and they don't have any other way out to express it. They are not being listened to. The leaders are not listening. So the only way out, wanasema vipi? Burukenge au kenge hana masikio. Anasikia nini? Kichapo.
So you've talked about two very important things about, and where I was coming to, where many countries who have faced economic problems, revolutions, and they've tried to actually solve it politically. And two things always has been, and many countries, even in Tunisia, even in what we call the Arab Spring, most of those regimes had to give way for new regimes to actually set what people want to do. Do you think, Fatuma, that the Gen Z, because they have had enough list of things they need to be looked into, and if you looked at the president the first day, his the speech was not actually, it was more confrontational, and then the next day he had a better speech, and today he ceded even more ground. But they are itemized, the Gen Z itemized things which they need to be addressed. Is the president really ceding that ground? And will he actually solve this economic revolution with a political solution?
I think when I look at the president's speech from day 1, day 2, day 3, there's a lot of issues that I have seen from him. Number one, a president coming to the public and attacking and telling terrorists and all so forth and so many things, that was a very bad image for our country. If we lose one life as a president, he should even mourn the entire country. What I have seen, number one, is that the president doesn't have a good advisor, because he cannot just wake up and say what he wants to say. He should be advised on what to do. So when you see president talking, I see a man who is alone. He doesn't have anybody, neither the ministers or the advisors who are surrounded him. He was just left to do his things alone. So you cannot do alone anything, because we are all human beings. We need each other. Even if I'm not a president, as a mother, I need to consult my children or my brothers or my friends to do what I want to do. But if you say that everything, like from speech 1, speech 2 and 3, you can clearly see the president is he's himself alone peke yake. So what he needed, that number one, he need to remove all the cabinet, because that is one way that the Gen Zs can listen to him. Because if you see what the list that they're saying, this must go, look at the Minister for Agriculture. The parliament, I think there was some impeachment come again, and then they have been saying the committee sit down and all those on that sort of thing. If you look at globally right now, we are facing something called climate crisis. And climate crisis is the center of every government. Even those the American government and every government is now focusing on the climate. What is climate issue? Climate issue is that you are solving the problem of the food, and food is priority for every human being. Food, water, shelter. So that our president jumped from food. He said that hatutaki chakula, but we need shelter. We don't need shelter because I can sleep anywhere. What I need is food to move and work. If I don't have food, if I can't afford food, that is now what is happening. It's not about Gen Z, it's all about Kenyans. Whether they're all young, professional, mama mbogas that he promises heaven, all those people are waiting for change. The change will only come if we see the ministers are getting out of their comfort zone. I have never seen, because the president always defend himself on the housing project. I have never seen the minister of housing, walking around and monitoring the project of the housing. Because if the ministers are not coming to the ground, we don't trust them. That is why Gen Zs are saying this government should get out of the office. Because all our ministers are busy sitting on the AC. They are busy on this, walking on the red carpet and walking around with 5 vehicles.
Yes.
Mimi hata sijui, I don't know, why do you need to have 5 vehicles? You only need 1 to sit. So our ministers are busy on themselves. Some of them, I think, they're telling us they have expensive watch. Wengine pia wanasema that there's a lot of things. The president is alone. If you look at the Gen Z conversation, he's always on road. He's leaving the country, going to Europe. We don't know if we have an ambassadors. Whenever the president leaves the country, what he always represents us, our ambassadors can do such thing. If the ministers cannot do, ambassadors are not delivering, let him recall back all of them. We start a new Kenya. We start everything from zero. Because if we keep saying that we are going to withdraw the finance bill, the issue is not the finance bill. How many trips the president go like these 2 years? I have seen, is it 63 times?
Yes.
Kuliko wale ma-president wengine.
Yes.
So why do we have ambassadors if the president want to go everywhere? The reason why we have ambassadors is because they are there to market our product. They are
And
there
the
to
country.
represent the country. Why will the president even go a small conferences where NGOs meet? I have worked for NGOs. Sometimes you see the kind of the meeting he attend. That's a very shameful thing because it shows that the president doesn't have a team that can work with him. You cannot just attend a community-based organization program. Maybe sometimes HIV conferences is happening somewhere. Then the president is going. Where the Minister of Health? Where is she? What is she doing? So those are the things that the Gen Zs have been talking about. We are not talking about only the finance bill. We are talking every issue. So president need to tell his people if they are not ready to do the work, let them leave the office so that we can allow him to move everywhere. Let him do the ambassador work. Let him the minister. we will be happy to see because we will say the president is the minister, he's the ambassador for the country, and he's the chief of everything.
No, but
now we are paying tax.
If I may just interject a bit.
Yes,
I think,
yes,
don't you think this is a choice that he has made?
Who has made that
The
choice?
president himself, so that when he's not around, no music plays. Because I feel like, yes, we all saw the gaps in the president's communication, of course, when this thing happened. He was a bit more choleric. He was a bit more hardened when he came out the first time in the aftermath of the breaching of the parliamentary presence. And then after that, he has been toning down, and you can see that he's ceding ground, as you say. But all in all, it only tells me about 3 things here. That either he has a very bogus communication team, or he does not listen to what they advise him, or there is nothing to communicate at all about him. So they just have to wait for him to tell them what to do because there's nothing to communicate. If you look back, those of us who happened to live the Kibaki days, there was nothing, there's no strong communication teams to do these things. We could always see what the president was doing and what was happening in the country. But times have changed. She has just touched on something called climate change. And this is something that I have always been saying, even in our expressions in the newspaper and everything else. If you look at the belt, this belt that we call Sahel region, it is a belt in turmoil.
Yes.
All the way starting from our neighboring Ethiopia to the Mediterranean Sea. It is a belt that touches, within it there is a place called the Lake Chad region. Lake Chad is drying up. The communities that are living around there are fighting each other like hell. They're killing each other. Look at Ethiopia. Communities are killing each other. It's Somalia and everything. And all these places that are people are killing each other are the ones that are facing low rainfall because there's no food. Initially in the Sahel region, we have the nomads and the farmers. The farming communities will grow their crops. Then once they harvest, they share with their nomadic neighbors. And then at the end of the day, the nomads will be allowed to graze their livestock on the farms, and then the animal droppings will fertilize the farms as they wait for the next rainy season. Right now there are no rains. And then when it rains, it floods. When it's not raining, the sun is baking and killing everybody else. So the little that you have when the farming community, the nomads have come and graze the same on your crops, of course that's a conflict. But now, the governments in place have not been realizing these things until coups started happening. It began with Burkina Faso. This guy has been in power for 27 years. 2014, people came and burned down the parliament, just like it happened in Kenya. Samira. They were hungry. Then, in the process, ISIS was chased away from Syria, and then they landed a place in Nigeria. They took over Boko Haram and then turned it into ISWAP, Islamic State in West African province. So these ones have come in with arms and telling the nomads that these people are not Muslims like you. Because most of the nomadic communities, the Fulanis, are Muslims.
Yes.
And they begin all the way from Chad to Gambia. There are so many of them.
The Fulani is a big community.
It's a very big community.
It's a big community in the West.
And most of them are Muslims. So when they're told that these people are not Muslims like you are allowed to go and graze, forcefully do whatever you want to do, it now turns into a religious conflict.
Yeah.
You see, yet the whole contributing issue is, first, climate change, 2, colonial legacy, 3, the issue of governance. Here in Kenya, our problem is the colonial legacy, which I thought we had resolved with our constitution, but it's the governance problem. Everybody who is in power, who is in office, is there to eat. So there is nothing enough for everybody, yet I think we collect enough for all. So it's all a governance problem that can only be resolved through governance and then having sound economic policies. It might not, unfortunately, work overnight now that the crisis is here. So the president needs to understand that he might be forced to either concede more, leave office, or sacrifice more.
You see, Alex, what you're saying, and I understand the climate Fatuma has really touched on. The biggest thing is that the president has either to decide, we say, to leave or to concede more.
Yes.
But what I see with the changes he's trying to make is remove to the session we call the self-preservation, where you live, and in 2005, when President Kibaki lost the referendum, he fired the whole cabinet. And when he fired the cabinet, his best friends, Murungaru was kicked out, Kiraito Murungi, Muiraria, and the rest. People left. But later he brought Muiraria, but the rest of them completely left the government to preserve himself. When Moi realized that the multipartyism is going to come to Africa by whatever, and he couldn't stop it, and he formed IPPG, Interparliamentary Group. He is the first one who agreed that they will have a new constitution and brought an experts, which it took us long to actualize, but he had moved from that position just to preserve himself. Do you think that the president, William Ruto, will preserve himself, or this economic revolution will force him out?
As I said earlier, in my previous understanding and having covered Greece and also Sudan, Moi was able to do all these things because he was facing political crisis. It was about people needing more parties, more freedom, and all these things. But I think the last time we had an economic crisis in the country was in 1999, when Moi was forced by IMF and World Bank to instigate what you call the SAPs, the structural adjustment programs.
Yes.
And you saw how the situation was then. But now he was dealing with a very different population then. The populace then was a bit fewer than we are right now.
Around 30
Most
million?
of his population, our set books has prepared us to be where we are today.
These people, the young people now, the millennials and now the Gen Zs, are more enlightened because they have learned from others due to technology and these digital platforms.
The phone revolution.
Of course. Now, when you listen to these young people speak, you'll hear them quoting the Tunisian revolution. They talk about the Orange Revolution in Ukraine that happened, I think, in the early 2000s there. And also, you'll also hear them talk a lot about graft, because when we were that age, we were never interested in knowing who stole what. But because of this information, the flow of information, it will be very hard because the president has already broken their trust. When he was expected to have diffused this problem, he actually aggravated it, the first speech. That's when now the conversation began from he must go to the finance bill to he must go, you see. And then he kept quiet for too long as this thing built. The pressure mounted, but he was quiet because he thought that he could easily deploy maybe the cops, police here and there, and then they will
and the military.
And the military. And for the military, in my own opinion, it should have been the last resort. It should have been the last resort, not the first. So right now, the cart is before the horse. And that aside, as I said, even if just go to South Africa, they also faced their own challenge. Zuma had to leave and now Ramaphosa came in. And actually, let me just warn Ramaphosa, wherever he is, you are going to face your own Gen Zs. They're learning from these ones here. And trust me, they taught you a lesson at the ballot. They'll be coming for you at the presidential palace. He'll be coming
in Pretoria.
Yes, because this man is just like our president. He's very, very sly. He's very, very rich and very smooth. But people think that he lies a lot, just like we do about our president.
Fatuma, do you think our president lies a lot?
I can say yes and no. Because what I'm saying yes is we had this slogan saying hustler, mama mboga, this bottom-up economic. So we are hoping that someone like us who maybe want to do businesses, we can get access to government procurement, because that is where he promises that he's going to make sure that the youth will do business. Mama mboga lazima kuwe na pesa kwa mfukoni. Na I remember when he said tunaanza hapa chini, huku juu hapana, tunateremuka hapa chini. So I'm still waiting for that to happen. But the policy that he advocated for is something that attracted us. That's why I'm saying he is not a liar, and he is a liar also.
I think before you proceed,
yes,
every sector has its own golden season.
Yes.
We know that we're not talking about music. There's that golden rock music era.
Yes.
Likes of Queen, likes of Duran Duran, the likes of Motley Crue and the likes. That era that politicians will do whatever they want, lie to people, move around, lie them, cheat them with this, dupe them with the lessons. That is over. And our parliament, as it is constituted right now, has been run by people who believe that that's how politics have been. Yet they forget that they use these same digital platforms to campaign.
Yes.
So it has just come back to bite them. When people can easily come back to you and tell you, no, this is what you said a few years ago. Where are we now? So the aspect of accountability has to be really, really taken into account. And that aside, even the media itself, we are not badly off in terms of how we are communicating these issues, because when the president talks about having been aware that people are against this thing, I think at KTN, in a newspaper, Standard Group and everywhere else, the news were there that people didn't like the finance bill. But somebody somewhere went out there and pushed for it, not in a nice way. They never seduced people to like it. They made it look so bad, sound so bitter, and that's why it had to be shoved down people whose throats were not ready to accommodate
to swallow it.
So they puked it out. They spat into their faces, and that's where you are right now.
One of my favorite books, ladies and gentlemen, is it's called The Rational Path. I probably have read it by Professor Jesse Mugambi and Professor Humphrey, the late Ojwang, the Supreme Court judge, and of course the sage philosopher Henry Odero Ruka, professor. It's a small book, 67 pages, and it talks about philosophy, religion, and law. And what is imperative is that all these three things is what the president has been using to govern. He thinks that he's very philosophical by his sloganeering. He thinks he's very religious. And that's why every time he tells us he's a Christian and reminds us he's a Christian. And finally, the president always tells us that about the rule of law, which he does not follow in that constitution to the letter. That's why he has a CASS advisors who are in the level of the cabinet secretaries, social health insurance, which is. My question is, Fatuma, and if you go to the northern region where Islamic faith, and why I brought that book,
yes,
is the main what brings people together, and there are some sharias which people should follow. That's why you don't go to a bank and borrow with and with an interest. Mm-hmm. Yet the governors from the northern region have been given billions of shillings successively, and there's nothing they can show for it in those region. Who is fooling who?
For the northeastern, we have a big problem when it comes to corruption, because our leaders and what we are being taught as Islam is totally different. Like I grew up in an Islamic way that Quran said corruption is totally something that God say you cannot practice corruption in Islam.
Yes.
But when you look at our leaders who are now stealing money, going to Makkah, worshipping, coming back, it is something that is really also questioning our faith also. Are we practicing our religion, or is it something that our leaders just want to do and then they will just say it is a normal? These things of corruption has become normal in our region since Kenya got independence. That's why we don't have good roads, we don't have hospitals. And if you go to Mandera or Garissa, you will see there's some schools are being closed because of insecurity issue. You will not find our leaders addressing those things. But when it comes to tribal or clan thing, they will stand in front of cameras and say, you have seen a few weeks ago when they're defending Nuruddin Haji, telling that the deputy president is attacking our son.
Yes, yes.
Whether it is their son or not, we have a problem. I came from a region where schools are not even open sometimes because of insecurity. Corruption is something that has been in our blood since we have seen government of Northeastern. Northeastern, the biggest problem we have is this clan-based endorsement that the clan will bring a son from a certain clan so that he will protect the interest of that clan. But they forget also there's something called accountability in Islam. They never preached all those things to tell that it's haram and all those things. It's only become haram when women go for political leaders. If a woman say that I'm going for governor, that is when our people from Northeastern will understand they are Muslim. That's when they remember that. No, Islam does not allow women to lead. But when it comes to accountability and you look at the surahs that talks about corruption, they will tell you, no, najua these things, we will talk later. And every governor come, he will say, hii pesa ni yetu sisi, clan fulani. For example, where I came from, the Garek clan, and then sub-clan where I came from, which is now Darawa, will say that, no, this is our daughter or our son, hata kama kiiba, this is our time to eat. So the same one person defending me doesn't have access to good education. They don't have access to good health. They don't have access to good roads and trading with other countries. But the problem that we are facing is that our elders have really blinded our eyes. We cannot differentiate when it's Islam or politics. When it comes to religion, they will defend. They will tell you that, no, you went on a letter Western culture to our religion or something. So we have a problem, and that problem, it has been 63 years old, because I have never seen a good road in Northeastern, because I came from Mandera County. I always use flight that is costing me 50,000 if I go and come back will be 50,000. All those things is because of corruption, and that corruption will not end until we, the youth from those regions, stood up and removed these people from the offices. But right now, we can't have anything to say. If the EACC and the corruption go there, they will be given money, wanarudi. So we don't know what to do. But now this Gen Z movement, we need to trickle down ourselves there to the grassroots, educate our people, tell our mothers and grandmothers that these things that the elders are telling us is killing our future. We don't totally have future. The only future we have is to leave that county, come Nairobi, look for a job or start business. That is why you see Isli is growing. Not because that all of us will love to stay in the city, We would love to go to Mandera, do businesses. But how can we do our business if we don't have security? And our governors, that is how they want. Because if today I bring a motion to say that the governor steal money, they will come for me. They will tell that this clan is attacking our clan. So now people will start fighting. Because being pastoralist community, they will always believe you have to protect your identity. Even if I'm dying, I have to protect my identity. And that is what I've been worshipped to believe.
So, and you've really captured it very well, because I've always tried to understand the faith, and that's why I brought the rational path. The faith vis-a-vis corruption, and what we teach in schools and in churches and in mosques. Now, the Gen Zs have told us, and they've told people expressively so, that they do not want those harambes with proceeds from corruption. And you could see the reaction to that. The president today actually said that he ordered AG to look at the harambes and how it will be dealt with. And maybe before Kiarie, you come in, Fatuma, you know, I have very many good friends from Northeastern, and one of them, and the clans, I know the Dogodias very well, I know the Gares, I know very many of them, and I've really related with them differently. Mm-hmm. But the problem has been that each clan always wants to be supreme over each other. Mm-hmm. There's no one who will sit down and tell you, we want better society for our even clan. They just want to steal for their families. How do we stop this stealing? How will youth, with this phone revolution, would they have a watchdog to tell these guys away from the elders? I know the elders hold as big position, because in the Northeastern, the elders are everything.
I think if you see Northeastern, there's less advocacy programs that's in Wajir, Garissa, Mandera, and there's less education in those regions. I believe these NGOs, instead of taking food and the government just saying that relief food is not going to change our problem. Our problem need to be educated, the people. Our mothers need to understand their right, because most of us, we never get opportunity to go to school. Maybe some few of us got the opportunity because of our parents, what they said for us. Mm-hmm. So what we need is a lot of advocacy, the professional to go back there, educate the community, enlighten what is happening. All the NGOs that are giving food, we don't need food. What we need is at least show me how to get food, because that is what has been blinding us. Show me how I can ask my MP, where is this money going? The CDF money. We don't even know if they're using for the community, or they're just buying apartment in South Sea or Isili. So there's less education. We are advocating for change. Yes, we need change. The change will only come if we enlighten the community. We need to differentiate clan and development. We need to tell them that if someone is coming to enlighten you, he is not attacking you. He is telling you the truth. Tunasema kwa Quran, knowledge will open your eyes. And if you have the knowledge, you can even get what you want. But if you are blinded, because most of the time politicians use, like, look at the last week when our MPs are coming up and defending Nurdin Haji. We are not saying it's a bad or good thing. But what we are saying, they are just closing, because most of them voted yes. And there are so many youth who are complaining, saying enough is enough. To blind us, now they are bringing this issue of Somali versus Kikuyu. We are not interested in all those things. What we are interested, why will our MP voted yes? They are not ready to explain. That is why they're bringing this Nurdin Haja, unasema kijana yetu anaonewa. We don't care about kama ni kijana yetu. What we care, tell us that how are you representing us? But you see, majority of people who live in those areas, they don't know. What they now hear is that Kikuyus now want to fight with Somalis. That's what they are being told. Politicians are taking advantage of such things. So what we need is that we need to advocate for change. We need to have a lot of advocacy towards our development, towards our right, and all those sorts.
I think you've captured it well. So I want us to close, Alex. And I was thinking, what is your last thoughts over the whole economic issue, revolution being sorted in a political way?
It is as good as trying to fetch water in a sack. If you really ask me, utashinda hapo tu. But I think one thing that the president needs to know is that if he does not act economically, he will be hounded out of that state house, because it has happened before. Sri Lanka, constitutionally, you're in office. Legally, whatever you have done is fine, but these people want you out. You deploy the military, it kills so many people, police kill so many people, then eventually they cross over, they support the protesters. That has always been the script. So he needs to find a way of inspiring confidence and trust by being seen to be walking the path that he's talking about, instead of being seen to be doing cosmetic pageantry and these appointments. Because frankly speaking, he is just an unfortunate victim of a process that began by a regime that he was part of 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I think 12 years ago, when he was the deputy president. Some of these policies that are biting him right now were passed during his time as a deputy president, and Kenyans believe that he supported them because he was the one speaking about them. Stadia, talking about constructing what, which has never come to pass. You see, when a child does not play, when a child does not eat, when a child does not go to school, do everything else, they'll turn to crime. Now we have a generation that has lived through these things. They have only become a big opponent of the government, whom sometimes is referring to as criminals himself. Yet he never fed them. Look at our music sector. How actually you should be the one telling us what was so good in the 70s and 80s that artists used to actually live off the art. That is not happening now. What went wrong there? If the young people that we are seeing in the sporting events are actually 1% of the youths in the country who can do all these sports, then something is very wrong with us. Mm-hmm. So it's a whole policy turnaround that is needed, and also that aspect of condescending attitude from our leadership, it has to change. And it can only change by being seen to be changing, not necessarily being spoken about or being said. So when he promises that he's going to do the change as he did today, most people are actually expecting him to announce a reshuffle. It has not happened. So what does this leave these young people to? The president was supposed to go and meet them. They were talking about, come to our space, don't let us come to your space. Some of us tried to go into that space and you saw how it was. It was extremely difficult. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether the conversation happened or not. So the communication part of it is just a unit. But the biggest overhaul should be in the way we are managing corruption in our system. Graft. Yesterday we were reporting about the 9 billion shillings being lost from National Hospital Insurance Fund. So how will you be able to face these people when they're hearing that there's a lot of wastage happening and no one is being jailed? We have some people in parliament who were actually fetched from prison. They're there. Some of them have been shooting the protesters dead. They're still in parliament. Nothing's going on. So it is all touching on the judiciary, the executive, and even the legislature itself. Some of the rulings that are being made are leaving everyone shocked. You have been seeing minors being starved in the cells. Why would a magistrate actually convict a minor to a cell for days, just like an adult or with adults? So it's something that it cuts across that needs to be worked on, and at the same time, you will never be able to prevent hungry people from overrunning your house. If you are rich
Thank you.
and you are living amongst the poor, they'll come for it.
Thank you, Alex. Fatuma, what is your last words in this debate today?
My last word is the government to listen to the youth. We need an ear to be listened, and we need action to be done, because the president, he's trying that, he's listening to us, but we feel like he has not yet listened to us. We need the government to listen to us. Whatever that the Gen Z brought, they should work on that, because we need change. We cannot work the same way that our grandfathers used to listen to the government. We need change, and the government must listen to us. It's our right, and we are demanding change for the constitution. We are demanding change for everything that the government brought. We don't even need all these people representing us. Let us reorganize our country. We need a new Kenya from now on hence.
Fatuma, are you willing to give the president a chance to also do these changes? Because clearly I think you're also pushing him too hard.
I have the right to say that because he promised us heaven, and we are in hell already.
And Kiarie, Fatuma has just captured it very well. And you're the one who is talking here about so many musical things and music. Maybe I throw for you some poetry and say that one of my favorite poets, Jill Scott Heron, 1986, he's a black American. He wrote that the revolution shall not be televised. The revolution shall not be televised. You go and look for it. It's a poem, it's a music, and it's all that. And it says that the revolution shall come to you, you watching it, not by Xerox. It shall not be televised. And in Kenya, the revolution is not being televised. It's coming. We can see it unfolding. And that's why Fatuma is speaking expressly and saying that if you say this, deliver on it.
I also love poetry, African.
Africa.
There's another gentleman from South Africa.
Yes.
He's called Umzwake Mbuli.
Yes.
They call him Umzwake Imbule in
Yes.
South Africa. He's a Zulu poet. He does his poetry in both Zulu.
Isizulu.
Zulu and English. There's one that he did in 1986 called The Day Shall Dawn.
The day shall dawn.
Yes, go look for it.
Thank
The
you.
Day Shall Dawn with instrumentation and everything.
Anything
I think
else?
it speaks to us now,
Yes.
almost 40 years later.
Yeah.
It is speaking to us. 1986.
The day shall dawn.
The Day Shall Dawn. It just speaks. He's
And-
the king of the spoken word in Africa.
And then the revolution shall not
It
be
shall
televised.
not be televised. So this dawning day might not be televised, as you say. It will not. Clearly, it will not.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Fatuma, for coming up here in this podcast. We really, really appreciate you and for your thoughts. You are extremely very good, and you've actually told us what we did not know, and you've really expressed yourself very well. And to Alex, of course, we've always been with you. We'll invite you guys again next week. We can see whether we can do something else, see how the situation progresses. I'm your host, CEO Charles Otieno. Thank you for listening to us and watching us. This is the Standard Editors Podcast.